Welcome back as we return to news overseas. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is visiting the Middle East for the fifth time since the October 7th Hamas attacks. He departed yesterday from Joint Base Andrews outside Washington. Secretary Blinken will meet with officials in Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Qatar, Israel, and he'll head to the West Bank. The State Department says the secretary will continue to push for an agreement that secures the release of hostages held in Gaza and includes a humanitarian pause that allows for further aid delivery as well. Joining us now, former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis. He is a chief international analyst for NBC News. We're grateful he's with us. Admiral, good morning. So let's talk first about Blinken's trip to the Middle East. It comes a short time after there was a number of parties in Europe met to try to broker a large-scale agreement that could release the hostages for a lengthy ceasefire, but both Israel and Hamas have nixed it. So what do we think that Blinken's odds are of striking some sort of deal? And as a second part of that, what sort of pressure do you think he's going to push on Netanyahu to change how Israel is conducting itself in this war?
Excellent questions. Number one, I think his odds of nudging the system toward hostage release, some number, probably pretty good. A lot of progress here. And really, Tony Blinken correctly is the public face of this. Privately, the director of the CIA, former ambassador Bill Burns, himself an ace negotiator, is behind the scenes. So I think there's a reasonable chance, Jonathan, some number of the remaining hostages, still about 100 there, will be exchanged for a larger number of Palestinians. On part two of Secretary Blinken trying to carve up a new settlement theory, kind of really moving us toward a two-state solution. I think here his task is much harder. Think of the first as a tactical opportunity, the big strategic lift of getting the system to move toward a real shot at a two-state solution. That's a much heavier lift. But boy, he is carrying our hopes with him, and he is, I think, on his fifth major trip to the region.
So, Admiral, we opened the show discussing the U.S.'s first wave of retaliatory strikes against Iran-backed proxies in retaliation for the service members killed in Jordan. The president has made clear there will be more coming. So let's get your reaction here. First, to what happened on Friday. Do you think those were effective? But secondly, what more should and will the U.S. do?
I do think the strike packages, we've now seen two significant ones, as you know, one to land targets in Iraq and Syria. These are proxies, but also some of the Revolutionary Guard support real Iranians. The second package struck in the Red Sea area against the Houthis, who are attacking commercial shipping. By my scoring, I think it's about 150 total targets serviced at this point. So this is getting to be a pretty large package. And as we heard from Jake Sullivan over the weekend with our colleague Kristen on Meet the Press, this is just the beginning. There is more coming. I think they've been effective in destroying infrastructure. In terms of creating immediate deterrence, probably not yet. We don't know, because that occurs in the minds of the mullahs in Tehran. What we do know is almost all of those targets were real infrastructure now destroyed that can't be used against our soldiers on land or our ships out at sea. So I think there's real progress.
So there's been a real divide, Admiral, among lawmakers in Washington and cable news hosts and other strategic thinkers as to whether the U.S. should strike within Iran itself. What is your take?
My take is not yet. We ought to continue to work up the vertical ladder of escalation. We started, you'll recall, a couple of months ago before Christmas, kind of just responding one-to-one on each of these individual strikes against us. Then we upped that to go after larger tranches of capability. Now we've upped it to include targeting Iranian National Guard, Revolutionary Guard actors who are backing up. I think the next step is going to be targets that are Iranian, probably Iranian ships, oil and gas platforms, And then at the high end is the move toward targets inside Iran. Let's hope we don't get there. Let's hope the mullahs are going to listen.
Yeah, the White House has been consistent, though. We heard it from Jake Sullivan again over the weekend. As much as they want to strike back against Iran, their primary focus not to widen the war. So that seems like a strike within the borders of Iran. Unlikely, at least for now. Retired four-star Navy Admiral James Stavridis. We will talk to you again shortly on Morning Joe. Thank you for joining us.